Hey everyone, Boz here. Really looking forward to today's conversation with our superstar general manager of OpenCorp Property Management, Jeremy Bishop. Jeremy, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, Boz.
This is the first time that we've had you on this series, which is really great because we know that there are so many questions out there around rental property, the rental market, rental yield, which I'm really looking forward to delving in with you today. But thanks for bringing your suntan all the way from Brisbane for today's conversation. It's good to have you on for the first time.
My pleasure.
Okay, so let's kick off. I guess rental yield is on the tip of everyone's tongue at the moment. Can you just clarify for people what is rental yield and how's it calculated?
Yeah, sure, Michael. So the best way to calculate rental yield is if you look at the total income that you're receiving on your investment. So if we look at it from a gross perspective, you look at that total annual income, and then you divide that into the value of your property. And then you multiply it by 100, and that gives you a percentage. So there's a simple way to look at it. If you've got a property that's worth $1 million and you're receiving rent of $50,000 a year, you divide 50,000 into a million, times it by 100, and that would equate to 5%.
Excellent, great. And why I guess are your team inundated with questions around rental yield right now?
Yeah, I think people are interested because yield has some sort of important factors for investors. So investors are able to use it to compare investment opportunities across different geographical locations or different types of properties. Helps investors in decide and identify which markets they actually want to invest in. The other thing, of course, lenders use it to evaluate loan applications. So, I mean, overall, rental yield really serves as a valuable tool for investors to analyze the financial performance, assess the risk, and really make informed decisions about their investment. And when one looks at a yield, what we sometimes do from a gross perspective, that's the gross annual rent you're receiving. You can look at it from when you first purchased the property, what the yield was then, to how the yield has actually increased over time as the rent has gone up, and you'll probably see that yield increase when you compare it to when you initially purchased it.
It's a really good point because I think everyone tends to look at rental yield when they're buying a property because they're concerned about, well, what's it going to cost me out of my pocket? And the part that a lot of investors forget that we find is they're not factoring in the tax benefits as additional income that helps them cover the cost of the loan repayments and the holding costs like rates and insurance and so on. So I think it's really important to consider all of the cash flow that comes in from the external sources. But you raise a really good point because if we think about our clients that invested in Perth, for example, a couple of years ago before it was the new U-Butte thing like it is in the media right now, they were budgeting on under $500 a week in rent, but in many cases we're getting $700 a week or better. And that was on a property that was 5 to 550,000 in value. So the rental yield when investors are buying versus the rental yield once it's tenanted or a year or two after it's tenanted can change dramatically. And obviously, investors that are looking to build a portfolio, that makes a massive difference for them because not only does it help the servicing calculators, but it means they're that much closer to getting the next property and being able to hold multiple properties without it impacting their lifestyle and them having to compromise on the way they live life. So some great insights there. In terms of tenant appeal, I guess, and maximizing our demand for rentals, what are tenants looking for in a property right now?
Yeah, that's a good question, Michael. I mean, in Perth, WA, we look at properties that are being leased so quickly. So, I mean, really, they're looking for a roof over their heads, to be frank with you, because the market is so incredibly tight, and you're receiving multiple applications. But in general, a tenant is looking for something that's well presented, that's clean, that's close to amenities. They're looking in specific areas that could be close to schools. Air conditioning at the moment in the summer seasons are really a key thing for a lot of tenants. I'm in Brisbane; it's certainly a key thing for me. So anybody who's looking will look at these factors as really important for them.
Excellent. And so, I think it's good to hear about some of those value adds, right? I guess investors from yesteryear would generally say, oh, well, I'm not going to spend extra money on that because it's extra cost. And I think there was a misguided belief a few years ago that you spend as little as possible on your investment property, forgetting that it needs to appeal to a tenant, right? And aircon, as an example, spend a little bit extra, but maximize that tenant appeal. You minimize your vacancy risk, if not remove it. And we're finding tenants coming in and staying longer, which just gives you a lot more rental income overall.
Yeah. Also, Michael, what some clients are doing is they're investing in solar. And you think, well, hang on a second, what's the benefit there for the client? But there are actually a number of benefits. So when tenants see solar, it's that they're really attracted because obviously their costs are going to be significantly less for their electricity. But for a client, there's lenders out there who are providing special rates based on solar. So there are things that can benefit both parties.
Yeah, a lot to be across. And like property management, there's so many changes to the legislation, and the legislation's so detailed. Getting that expert guidance and help is a great way to be across all of the details. So I'm a landlord multiple times over. For the other landlords listening today, what can they be doing to set themselves up for success? So maybe if we could get kind of the top 3 things that a landlord can be doing to maximise appeal and get better rent return.
Yeah, sure. So they need to talk to their agent about the market, to understand the market, to ensure that they're achieving the very, very best price that they can. If they're looking at reletting their property, they need to ensure that the property is really well presented. Making sure your property manager is doing simple things like making sure the garden is looking pristine, so that when the tenants come through for the inspections, they can see that the property is really looking its best. So that's a really, really key thing.
Yeah, excellent. I mentioned before, I guess, around the importance of a property manager. I wouldn't invest without them. It's just too much to know and too much to be across with different legislation in different states. So I guess really quickly, can you explain to everyone out there why an expert property manager is such a critical part of their team?
Yeah, absolutely. If you've got somebody looking after your investment, and your investment could potentially be worth, $1 million plus, you want somebody who's really well versed in legal compliance. They understand the tenant laws, they understand the regulation. They want to make sure that your property is compliant and really meets with the legal requirements. The other thing, of course, is when it comes to selecting a new tenant, you want to make sure that the property manager is really going and deep diving into the actual background of a tenant. I'll give you an example. You might have tenants who have rented through private landlords. We've had examples where we've gone slightly deeper. We've actually, through different applications that we use, we can find out who the actual owner of that property is. And you'd be surprised, sometimes people will put down it's a private landlord, it's a friend of theirs. So it's really about going that extra mile. So that's really, really key. The other thing is market knowledge. You want somebody who's going to be very knowledgeable about the market, who's going to give you advice based on the conservative and also more of a progressive feel as well, so that the actual insights about rental trends and pricing strategies are really at the forefront of the property manager's mind. And also, of course, you want somebody who's going to minimize your costs. You want somebody who's going to, look at the maintenance that's raised, see what cost savings can be made, and what's appropriate.
Wonderful. So some really, really, really good tips there. As I said, I wouldn't be able to hold my portfolio without the expertise of property managers where my properties are located around Australia. Thanks so much for joining us today to shed some insight on that. So some tips, I guess, for people to take away. Be realistic with your rent increases, but absolutely be aggressive in a tight market where rents are going up. Don't just accept the good old, increase it by $5 or $10 a week, because that's what's always happened. Get a property manager that's working for you. Get an expert that understands the area that you're in. Present your property really well, and be able to differentiate a little bit to maximize the tenant appeal. When you're considering cash flow, obviously rental yield's a component. Add in the tax benefits as well, and you'll have a pretty good recipe for a low cost to hold investment that allows you to springboard into another one. Jeremy Bishop, thanks for joining us today.